Hi, I'm Crystal.
And I'm Karin, and you're listening to the Rom-Com Detectives.
Welcome to Rom-Com Detectives, episode 15, A Reckoning, the next episode in our Mentalist unit. Today, Karin and I will be breaking down the 8th episode of the first season called Thin Red Line.
This episode originally aired on November 25th, 2008.
And before we get to the case briefing, I just want to mention really quickly that we're doing an episode breakdown right after we did our interview with Owen Yeoman because Tara is traveling, so she couldn't record for Lucifer this week. So we're going to have 2 episodes in a row for the Mentalist unit. But so just to give a quick overview, this case took place in Davis, California. I actually didn't look up where this is in relation to Sacramento.
I
Did
did
you?
not either.
It's kind of funny. It's in Yolo County. That's amusing. Oh, it looks like it's a Sacramento neighborhood, so it's in the general area. Okay, so we don't have to pay too much attention to teleporting. Alrighty, title relevance. The term thin blue line refers to the concept of police being the line between order and chaos, and this episode centers around a cop's family, and it's being torn apart by a secret, and that the perp unknowingly kills his half sister. So, given the blood tie, I think that's probably why they changed it from thin blue line to thin red line. Maybe the thin red line represents the blood tie between the victim and the murderer. What do you think?
I think so. I think, well, they have to have red in every episode title.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
it's a reference to the cops in this story, I
I
believe.
mean, there is a war movie called The Thin Red Line, a movie which I went to see in theaters, and I believe I left the theater because I thought it was so boring. It was like some John Travolta movie or something like that. I don't know. I didn't like that movie, so I don't think there's any tie to that one.
Oh.
So there's 2 victims in this one. It's Patrice Madigan and Joseph Purcell. They were shot in a hotel room or a motel room.
And the CBI is involved because the victim, Joseph, was supposed to testify in a big case, but he had gone missing, like he had evaded his police supervisors.
Yeah. So he was on the run. He was in hiding because of the guy he was supposed to testify against, I guess. The motive here was anger at one of the detectives that we meet through in the episode. And guest stars, there's Steve Braun. I think he was Sam Blakely, but he's actually a voice actor for a lot of games, and he's guest starred on a lot of procedurals. The person that most people will probably recognize was Mark Rolston. He played the senior detective Blakely. He's from Bosch. He was in X-Files. And I think what I recognize him most from, but I didn't remember until I looked him up, is that he was Boggs in the Shawshank Redemption. He was the guy who was chasing around Andy Dufresne in prison. And then he was also Drake in Aliens.
Wild.
But he looks so much younger in that. I was because when I saw his name in the credits on his IMDb page, I was like, Drake. I don't recognize the name, so I went looking it up, and yeah, I recognized him after I watched some videos. And then there was Clara Clatterbuck. She was on The Young and the Restless for a long time. I think she was Lacey. I'm not positive. And then Julian Acosta, he's from Madam Secretary and Hand of God, and he was Preciado. Jane's skills in the episode. Karen wrote down baby detecting, which is cute. But yeah, he does
He
do that,
does.
right? He looks around the motel room. He figures out that there's a baby in the car. Yeah, and it's just in general his way with children. He's really good with kids, and then he also does pulse reading, which was really amusing this episode.
He was not subtle.
All right, getting into the episode breakdown. It starts with a young patrol officer arriving on scene, and a man directs him to a motel room, and he finds two bodies inside, and they've been shot. The following morning, Minnelli is on the scene, and he's as the team arrives, and he informs them that the male victim, Joseph, was supposed to testify in the case. And while he's walking Lisbon through the case, he talks about this guy Rick Karras, who is like this big case that they're trying to try. And Jane is making observations in the room. He notices a baby bottle on the floor, and Melanie makes a snide remark when he spots a bag of some kind of white substance on the floor. But and he starts talking about cocaine and stuff like that. But Jane says it's not cocaine, and then Lisbon says it's powdered milk. And then this was weird. Minelli says it's used to cut the product, and I was
Mhm.
like, "Is it?" My Google search history now says powdered milk cutting cocaine.
Yep. I was typing that in. I was like, someone might flag this somewhere.
It's for a podcast.
I'm innocent, I swear.
But yeah, I mean, it just sounded a little ridiculous to me. I mean, I'm not any kind of, I don't know things about drugs, but the idea of cocaine being cut with powdered milk sounded really strange to me, because not just because it has a scent to it, but it's not white,
Yeah, it's a
right?
little
Like
yellow
powdered milk
yellowish
is like
maybe.
like a beige color.
Yeah.
So yeah. And it's also really coarse too. So I don't know if that's like an actual thing, but I feel like there's a lot of other substances that people can use to cut cocaine with that are more believable than
Yeah.
powdered
So,
milk. So I don't know what Melanie is going on about in this.
in my quick search, it seemed it didn't come up in all of like, a lot of the web searches or, you sent me down a rabbit hole, but, um, it's not unheard of, but I think it more likely would they were talking about, like, baby powder
Yeah.
and stuff like that, so it's definitely not unheard of to cut with powdered milk, but I think within the episode, it's more like Minnelli seeing what he wanted to see, something that
Yeah.
supported his
Yeah.
story.
So Jane takes the keys from the room, and he goes outside and he hits the key fob, and then he finds the car that belonged to Patrice. And inside is the baby, who is
"Yay,
so
baby!"
cute. She's so
And
cute.
Lisbon gets so soft. She's like,
I
"Oh, hello,
know.
baby."
Yeah, see, this is something I'm gonna skip ahead in the show a little bit, but this is something that bothers me that people discuss sometimes in on the subreddit. People are like, "Oh, like Lisbon doesn't seem to like kids," and I'm like, "What are you talking about? She likes kids.
Mhm,
She likes babies. I mean, she starts baby talking to the baby right there, right?
mhm.
And that's not something that everybody does. If people who don't like babies tend to just look at them like, ew, what do I do with that thing? Right? I mean,
Yep.
but so Minelli's reaction, like a perfect example, Minelli's reaction when he sees the baby is to go, oh no. I mean, to be fair, that's might just be like he's thinking of all the paperwork they're gonna have to do,
Yep.
but that's his reaction, and Grace is just smiling. But Jane is so good with the baby, and
Yeah.
he's just she's so smiley and happy and moving
Yes.
around. And this is the scene that I use for the Mentalist bullpen Discord server icon. It's
Mhm.
one of my favorites. Woman comes to take the baby, and Jane does baby talk here too.
Yeah, he
Really
doesn't wanna let her
cute.
go.
And then two Davis PD detectives arrive. Oh my god, these guys are so irritating right off
Yeah,
the
they are.
bat. They're like really condescending toward them, and the guy Blakely, he Jane actually notices that the detective Blakely has the same last name as the responding officer, and that guy explains, "Oh yeah, that was his son." And then his partner is just like, "Oh yeah, he puked his guts out." It seemed not. I mean, when I was watching, I was like, "Wow, that's kind of rude for you to just say that in front
Yeah.
of your partner, right?"
Yeah.
Just But yeah, Blakely is really territorial, and he tells Lisbon it's their case, and the guy Preciado is like almost a little like, I don't know. Do you think like actor wise he was kind of over aggressive?
Yes.
He
Yeah, I
seemed
do.
kind of like the way his eyes were like bulging out of his face and he was like leaning in really close to Lisbon. It was kind of overdone, I thought.
Yeah, and this is the first time that Lisbon doesn't push back. Like,
Yeah,
they say it's their case, and she's just like, "I hear you."
yeah. But so Jane seems to sense like not I mean it's not hard to detect that they're being dicks toward Lisbon, but he seems to react in this scene like he's snarky back at them. He makes a snide remark about letting Purcell run away from them instead of testifying. And it's funny because in this scene Lisbon is just like she's trying to play it cool, but she's
Yeah.
also really irritated because Jane is clearly picking at them.
Yeah.
But then Jane pitches the idea that the girl was a target because they're so set on it being that the guy Joseph Purcell is a victim because he's like the guy that was going to testify against the guy Karras that they've been trying to bust for years. And then they mention that they don't know where Patrice lives, and then they go and do their thing. And then Jane shows Lisbon a bridal magazine he found in the car that has an address for a woman in Lacey Wells. And so that's what leads them to the place where Patrice was living with Kaylee, the baby. And I thought it was interesting this part because the whole time that they're talking to this woman, Lacey, she's laying out everything. She's giving them like their next lead and everything. She's saying how Patrice always has money, that she was able to bring up 10 grand and get a lawyer when they got busted for meth before. And so she's got a sugar daddy, right?
Yep. Yeah, she gives them a lot of information.
But so this is something that I got confused about later, because she describes a skinny, tough guy with dark hair who drives a blue car. And so that's what eventually leads them to hone in on Preciado.
Mhm.
And so we'll come back to that. But so the whole time that they're talking to Lacey, Jane is really interested in her. Did you notice that he like really stares intensely at her while she's
Yeah.
talking? And I thought that they were gonna bring it back that he was making observations about how much she cares about the baby or something like that, but I don't think it was brought back up. But
No.
I think do you think it was just in general they're just trying to show how keenly he pays attention to people and how they talk?
Yeah, I don't know, it was kind of awkward. I
Yeah, he like
I
she just looked kind of intense right at her.
yeah, I wonder if it is because there's a baby involved. Like, because he had
Mm-hmm.
a hard time letting the baby go to social
Yeah.
services, and I think he just wants to, like, well, partly he's relating to her because she talks about
Yeah.
how look how
Clean
well
the
the
places.
victim kept the place clean and how good of a mom she is, and I think part of him just wants to know that this baby was living in a good place.
And there are a couple of beats of the Red John music playing during this interview. Like
Mm,
it's very very subtle, but you can hear it. I don't know how to describe it. It's that I don't know. I'll play it for you later or something, but you can kind of hear it in the background. So I don't know if it's like what you said. Maybe it's him thinking about
his family.
yeah, because it does involve a baby and a mother who was killed. So at this point, Rigsby calls Lisbon to tell her that they have the location for the guy Rick Karras, who the Davis PD guys think killed the two victims. And so she tells them not to go in until they're ready. So of course you know that they're gonna go in.
Yeah.
Sure enough. So I thought this scene was appropriately irritating because they have a little fight down at the scene. Preciado and Blakely arrive and they want to go in anyway. And oh my god, it's so irritating when he says, "You can wait for mommy."
Oh,
So irritated by that.
yes.
So yeah, that line did its work. But Lisbon arrives and she goes in with Cho and Rigsby, and Jane waits outside. But then the guy Rick comes out the back, and Jane
Mhm.
is established as being like kind of non-confrontational. He uses unconventional means to catch people. So he moves a cement block to block the gate that the guy's gonna come crashing through, and that makes him fall back into the yard. And then they arrest him.
Did the guy not see? Did the d
I I think they showed him, like, looking behind himself, like, at the people
Okay.
chasing him, so maybe, yeah, maybe he didn't see Jane doing that. But I like the little wave that Jane did at the cops when
Yeah.
they took the arrest from them. It's like, "Hey."
We got him, not you.
Back at CBI, they interrogate the guy, but he insists that he didn't kill Joe, and eventually he lawyers up. Jane is watching the interrogation from the other room, and then they get pizza because they're staying late and they're going to have dinner at the office. And this is where we learn that Joe does not like pineapple.
This is important information.
Yes. This is actually a line that people quote
Yeah.
often because basically, like, Jane and Elizabeth or Jane and Grace are saying, like, Grace is saying, "Oh, he's not gonna like that there's pineapple," and Jane says, "Oh, you can just take it off," and, like, she brings that up later, right, when Joe's like, "There's pineapple in this,"
Uh-huh.
and she's like, "You can take it."
You can take it off.
"You can take it off." He says, "Oh no, it's been there." Such a Joe line.
To be fair, though, pineapple would leave a flavor behind. You can't just
Yeah.
take pineapple off a pizza and not taste it.
And also, I wanna note that he takes one anyway, even though they have 2 pizza boxes, so did Jane order 2 Hawaiian pizzas? Right? I was very
Uh-huh.
confused by that.
But at the end
'Cau
of the scene, he takes Lisbon salad. He
Yeah,
at it's such a throwaway little line.
it's cute though. I do wanna note that Hawaiian pizza does taste good.
I
If
like
you're
it.
if you're scared off by it, just try it at least once. The sweet and sour is really good. Not that I'm biased or anything. So the team talks things through a lot here, and all throughout this scene, Jane is doing something with a cup, right? Did you
Mhm.
a cup and 2 utensils, and these are 2 utensils that he had gotten while he was talking to Grace in the break room. But he basically has a glass cup, a fork, a spoon, and a toothpick, and he balances them and he puts the toothpick on top, and then he burns the toothpick so there's only
Uh-huh.
like a little
Yeah,
bit holding it. So what did you think they did that for? Was it just some little trick that they wanted to put in?
I think so. I mean, I could give you a screenwriter reason.
Oh, okay. Well, we can go into that when we do the hot reading later. I'm
Okay.
curious now, though. um, So the team talks through it. Karis has an alibi, and it was a weirdly specific one about him having sex with his girlfriend while a certain TV program was on. And I want to know what TV show they're talking about because I mean they do make pop culture references throughout the Mentalist
Yeah.
that are current for when the show aired, but I don't know what this was. Cho says it was the Scottish guy who saw the actress who married the country singer.
So, my best guess is the Late Late Show with Craig Ferguson. He had
Huh.
a late night talk show at this at the time in 2008. Well, from 2000, I don't know, for quite a while. So he would have been a slightly well-known personality.
So you mean he was
But
interviewing somebody?
yeah, so he is a Scottish American talk show host.
Okay.
So he could have been interviewing someone.
So
What
was he like when I see actress who married the country singer, the first person I think of is Nicole Kidman.
I don't know.
Right? She's married to Keith Urban.
When I did a search for the line, it was telling me someone who got married last year, and I'm like, "This was not relevant to 2008."
Yeah, we're gonna have to figure out what this is. We're gonna have to do more googling later. So then they're talking through this thing about they have a theory that Preciado is Patrice's cop boyfriend, that
Dun,
he's
dun,
tall
dun.
and skinny and drives a blue car, and Grace confirms that he does drive a blue car, and Lisbon wants him to double check because he's a police officer and it's a sensitive subject. But apparently it does check out. Lacey identifies him, and so they go to talk to him at a food truck, and he gets really aggressive, which is fair because nobody wants to be told that they're being taken in for questioning when they're a law enforcement officer. But this interrogation I when I first watched the show, I thought it was so amusing, and so I think that's why they did it this way. It's just to show
Mhm.
like how like irregular and off the wall Jane can be.
Uh-huh.
He's just very chaotic because during his interrogation he walks in and he's got a sandwich and he's just eating it really like noticeably and noisily
Yes.
while Lisbon is talking to him.
So obnoxious.
And then and actually when he first walked in, he shook his hand and he like touched his hand like a little too much. The guy
Uh-huh.
Preciado really didn't like that. He's like, "What's
Uh-huh.
wrong with you?" And then later, when he offers him the rest of his sandwich, he touches his wrist again. He doesn't get to touch him for very long, but he
Uh-uh.
seems to be able to read even in that short amount of time.
He's a pro.
Yeah. But so Preciado admits that he tries to say that Patrice was his CI, but then he admits that he was just paying her for sex and that they were sleeping together. Lisbon picks at his ego by mentioning that Joe Purcell was the father of her baby, but he doesn't seem to be too bothered by that. And eventually he lawyers up. But yeah, so Jane touches his wrist again. He asks again. He asks Lisbon this time, "What is wrong with him?" Lisbon asks him for his weapon. I don't. Did he agree to that?
To the weapon?
Yeah.
Excuse me. So yes, because he had his weapon on him while they were
Uh,
interrogating him. It was just so bizarre to me. Like, why would you let him keep is that a cop courtesy?
I don't know, but I mean, you've been watching Bosch, right?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. So I actually like that detail in Bosch. How like when they enter a certain part of the station, everybody has to put their gun in a locker. Did
Okay.
you notice that? Yeah, it's
Uh-uh.
so that they don't have weapons when they go into I think a certain like deeper into the station. So I mean that to me makes a lot of sense. So
Yeah, me too.
and it's not just like a sense of trust among themselves. I mean, we see all the time on TV how like people can grab guns from somebody else,
Yeah,
and then yeah. So I mean, you're going to be handling criminals, so you don't want to have a weapon on
right.
you, right? So
Totally makes sense.
The Mentalist is not that kind of show. They're a little looser with things here.
Yeah. So he does hand over his gun, but I don't think they did anything with that. They never
Yeah,
came back
yeah.
with test results.
And I think it's because the case led them elsewhere.
Yeah.
So after they talk to him, Jane tells Lisbon that Preciado is a bad liar, and he reveals like what he revealed, like what he found out from his pulse reading, and then I love this conversation between Jane and
Mhm.
Lisbon because they're talking about he. I think he says that cops are big bad liars or something, and
Yeah.
Lisbon says that she lies to him all the time. But he insists that he always knows when she's lying, and he mentions that last Thanksgiving she told everyone she was going back east to her brother's house, but he knew that she was planning to have 3 days at home alone to watch old movies and eat ice cream. And that just sounds like such a Lisbon thing to do. That's why I love this part of her, like her. I mean, it's kind of sad on the one hand, but I still like that part of her personality, and I like that they take the time to add these little details to her character.
Yeah.
Okay, so Lisbon comes up with a plan of action on how to um, check on Preciado's alibi because he tells them that at the time of the murders, he was at his partner's house with his wife. Like, I guess he had some beers and he stayed over or something. So they're going to go talk to him. So Lisbon plans to split them up. She's going to go talk to Blakely while he goes and talks to his wife.
Mhm.
And so when Jane shows up, her son Sam is there. He was the patrol officer who was the first on the scene in the opening scene. And so Sam doesn't want to let them talk alone, but she says it's
Mm-mm.
fine. But I mean, his instinct is right because Jane is there to get information out of her. And she seems to come to a realization of what's going on while she's talking to him because her face changes. She's
Yeah.
talking about, she tells him that it doesn't make sense that the guy Preciado is having an affair with Patrice because she says that she's heard from her husband that he has erectile problems. That came out of nowhere.
It just it's just such a weird conversation to have. "Oh, by the way, my partner has
I
issues."
know.
What?
Because like, and that's definitely what they're talking about. Because Jane says, "Oh, well, they have pills for that now," and
Uh-huh.
she says something about how no, it's more permanent. So what does that mean? Like, what is? It's not dysfunction. Is he a eunuch?
I don't know. He's a hopeless case. That's all we're gonna get.
It's very bizarre. But yeah, so okay, so this brings us to the part that confused me. So Lacey identified Preciado as the guy who was who came to bail her out, who like or the guy that she saw her with that she thought was
Yeah,
her cop boyfriend. But he wasn't the cop boyfriend, so was he just doing it on behalf of his partner?
I think so.
And
I
it
think
just so happened that Lacey saw them together.
Yeah, I think that's how it went. I think that Blakely wanted some distance between them. He didn't
Uh
wanna
huh.
be seen alone with her or have witnesses, so he probably asked his partner to do a favor.
Uh, yeah, so the wife seems to come to a realization. She says that maybe he's just lying about it to save his reputation, or he's covering for someone. And that's when she seems to realize, oh my god, he's covering for my husband.
Uh-huh.
And
Oh,
so right on cue, her husband comes home
with Lisbon in tow.
with this there, and everybody goes outside and they have a whole like fight on the front lawn, and she mentions that he had promised that he wouldn't do it again, and um Jane just casually says detective, and he turns around and just slugs him right in the face.
Uh-huh.
So this was punch number 2 of season 1.
2.
He got him really good though.
Yeah, but no blood this
No
time.
blood. Yeah, no blood this time. So all right. So since they've uncovered Blakely's connection to Patrice instead of Preciado, they arrest him, and so they take him back to CBI. And Minelli is very upset. And
Uh-huh.
even though like he doesn't have a lot of scenes, but he's often very like snarky and sarcastic to Lisbon. So I
Uh-huh.
I don't know if that makes him a good boss, but I like that he's good for entertainment value.
Yes, and, I mean, he's doesn't seem to be like, he's not a consistent presence in these
Yeah,
episodes,
yeah.
but he's always mentioned as one of the favorite bosses.
Yeah, and I think it's because he's so entertaining. He's always so sarcastic.
Yeah.
But Cho leans pretty hard on Blakely, but he eventually lawyers up, and then he says that his service revolver was stolen from his car.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, so did his son steal his own service weapon? Why would he steal his dad's weapon? Was he gonna frame his dad for the murders? Like I was like,
Yeah,
what?
that part doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, that was weird.
And and they never say anything like, "Oh, yeah, it's a standard issue," because they make a point of saying the size of the bullet's a
Yeah,
38
yeah,
caliber. They
yeah,
No one ever says, "Oh, yeah, that's our standard issue for our police department,"
yeah.
which
It
would
just so happens that everybody carries that
yeah.
that kind of gun. Uh, but so Sam Blakely arrives, and I think at this point, if you like on rewatch, it seems pretty clear that everybody knows like they're acting at this point for Sam because
Mhm.
when Grace tells him that Sam is here, I don't know, Jane seems kind of excited, but it's not something that you really pick up on when you're
No.
watching the first time. So it's like the twist is in what they're doing to Sam. But yeah, so the team
Well, first
shows
but before they even show him anything, they walk him through to the bullpen, and
yeah,
they see Rigsby letting Karis go.
yeah, yeah. So that's part of their whole show for him. But then they show him video footage of a man who has gone there to kill Purcell, and they feed him a story about how they're gonna do a sting to catch this guy. His name is Q-Tip.
Q-Tip. And they say his name so many times.
I know. Oh. But so they asked Sam to feed info to his chief so that they can catch him. I guess they're trying to make him feel comfortable, like he's helping them along.
Mhm. Well, they tell him that Q-Tip didn't actually kill them, but he found them, and that he saw who the killer was.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they're giving Sam a reason to silence him.
Yeah. So they were telling him that he was there to kill Purcell, but when he got there, they were already dead. So,
Hmm.
and I saw CBI Ron in this scene.
Yay!
So they do a stakeout, and Grace and Rigsby, they're sitting in a car together, sharing French fries.
Aw.
So I think this must have been done in Sacramento because they're talking. Lisbon and Jane are on walkie talkies at the office, while Cho, Rigsby, and Van Pelt are out on the streets with Sam.
With Sam. I hadn't yeah,
So
that's it's kinda
their
crazy.
walk their walkie talkies must have insane range. How much range do walkie talkies typically have? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it could be CB radio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So Sam, they start directing him to a certain place, and then eventually he shows up first, and he shoots a mannequin, in a car that they had set up for him, and so they arrive and they arrest him, and then Jane explains that, oh yeah, Van Pelt faked the license plate with Photoshop, which she bigified when they were
Yeah.
showing him.
Yeah. "Can you make that license plate bigger?" "Well, yes, I can."
But and then they bring Detective Blakely in, and he tells them the truth. He tells his son to tell the truth that this is a reckoning, and so that's where we got our episode title from. But basically, Sam reveals that his dad has railed it into him his whole life about honor and all kinds of and stuff like that. But then he hears rumors that his mom, I guess, thought he was having he was having an affair. So he went and
Mhm.
he asked around, and he found out that he was seen with this lady Patrice, and so he thought that he was having an affair with her. So he went to go talk to her, and I guess it was like a not a comedy of errors, but it was just like a couple of different factors that led to this.
Yeah.
Basically, the guy Joe was already really paranoid, thinking that somebody was out to kill him, and he had asked Patrice to bring him food because he didn't want to go out because he was scared of being killed.
Yep.
So when Sam barges in, he draws on him, and then they fire at each other, and he kills both of them. But and then when dispatch calls in the shots, or I guess somebody called it in, so he gets sent back to the motel, and that's why he was the first guy back on the scene because he was already there. So, but then Blakely reveals that Patrice was his daughter, not his mistress, and I thought this was such a sad part of the
It's so
episode.
sad.
And it's especially noticeable when like they go to like I don't know if it's a couple of days later, but Jane goes to knock on the door of the Blakely house, and they're just sitting there, just numb.
Yeah.
Like they're just they don't they look very lost. And like when you
Mhm.
think about like what their family has gone through, it's really sad because their son is arrested for a double murder, and he killed his daughter, and it's just very sad.
Mhm.
So
And
I think that's why they go with the ending that they did.
it kills me on the rewatch too, because when you think back to, Blakely and his partner at the beginning, and, they're putting all their focus they're saying, "Oh, it's, this drug thing."
Purcell.
Yeah, and, Jane's like, "Well, what about the girl?
Yeah.
Maybe it was the girl." And they know that it was, but
Yeah.
they are fully committed to covering it up and not giving her any attention at all, it feels like.
Yeah. Yeah.
Knowing and when she knew exactly who she was, where she lived, everything, all of her connections.
And actually, now that you mentioned that, like, they arrived at the scene, so the guy Blakely must have known that they found the baby?
Yeah, he would've when
As part of the case, he would have known that they found a baby in the car, right? It's
yeah,
because
he
it's like a joint investigation.
shoulda known about the baby, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know, like, it's kinda weird that he never shows any kind of interest in the baby because that would be his
Yeah,
granddaughter, so,
yeah.
it's one of those hand wavy things.
Aw.
Yeah, so Jane knocks on the door and he's got Kaylee with him and he's telling them that social services is going to come by with the paperwork. And this is a very like I think not grounded in reality kind of ending, but like I
Uh-huh.
said, I think they needed to end the episode with something lighter because of what the case ended up being. Because yeah, it's really sad. And especially when you think about how Kaylee doesn't have anybody. The baby doesn't have anybody, right? So, because yeah, I don't think you just bring a baby without asking and just
Right?
like hand it over,
You
like,
don't call ahead.
oh, are you feeling sad? Here's a baby.
I shall solve all your problems. You'll have a grandchild. Oh, but then he's
Here's
like,
two diapers.
but yeah, but then he's like, this is your grandchild, kind of, because she's not related by blood to the
Yeah.
wife.
But at the same time, like it's just there's so many questions in my head. I was like, why would Jane have the baby? Did
Because
he
he
have a
loves
car?
the baby.
Did he have a car seat in his car? Did he walk her there? Because yeah, don't drive her with no car seat. Like, and if she's in a car seat, you just normally bring the car seat to the door too.
Right? Yeah, they might need a car seat. They
Yes,
will need a car seat.
exactly. But yeah, I
Oh,
was just like, and it's just like, it's a Jane thing where he like went to social services and he talked his way into to delivering the baby or something. I was like, this doesn't make any sense.
well, he says that they're coming along later, right? Like, social services
Yeah,
will stop by and sort it all out with you. I guess he needed closure with the baby.
yeah, it
But
was
then
cute though.
he says that they could rename her. Like, what's
I
that
know.
about?
He says, I don't think that name suits her. I think you can rename her. I was like, what?
What?
What? Why did they throw that in? I was like, isn't that kind of rude to the mother who was just murdered?
Uh-huh.
Like, hello, why don't you just keep the name that she chose? Do not approve there, Jane. Not a good idea. All right, cold reading. At what point does Jane crack the case?
I think when he's talking to the wife and Sam is so insistent to be there and just learning their family dynamic, I think that's when he starts to put all those pieces together.
Yeah, but he also does seem to have like an inkling back with the baby. Like he like lays it out during their meeting, that like the murder happened like at precisely the right
Yeah.
time for her to
Yeah.
have been killed. That because he argues that she was because she left the baby in the car, so she never meant to stay very long. She was just going to drop off the food and go back to the car and leave. So there was a very narrow window for her to have been in that room, and then to have the person kill her, then it doesn't seem likely that he was the target, because
Mhm.
it's a hell of a coincidence that in that tiny window she happens to be there and she gets killed too. So I think that was his reasoning for that. Hot reading. Karen, you take it away.
All right. We have one deleted scene from the script after the CBI arrests Karras and they take him from the local cops. And Manelli has been talking about how important it is that they work together. So he has some words for them. He says, harmonious is the word I used. Interagency synergy is this year's watchword. And Lisbon says, this one wasn't our fault. And Jane backs her up. Those Davis cops are crazy. And Manelli says, a little anger is understandable. You couldn't have handed Cyrus over to them. Lisbon says, if we hadn't kept him in our custody, I think they might have killed him.
Hmm.
And Manelli says, as long as they wait till you're gone, worse things have happened. Seriously. And Lisbon calls him out. I know you're not serious, or I would resign right now. And Manelli says, yeah, yeah, easy for you to play the righteous avenger. It's me that has to clean up the mess. And as he walks away, Jane says, interagency synergy is 2 words. 3 almost.
It's so funny because when you said that earlier, I was like, that's not one word.
And also from the script, we learn that when Cho's in the stakeout, he's reading a book, and in the script, he says, like Jane asks him what he's reading, and he says it's Bleak House by Charles Dickens.
Ah, I have never read that book. I've never even heard of
Oh,
that
me
book.
either. Me either. I don't know. Cho reads a lot of the classics.
Yeah.
And did you want me to talk about that script writing technique?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so when Jane is building that device while they're having the talk about, they're laying out a lot of details about the case.
Mhm.
And this is a script writing technique called the Pope in the Pool. It's based on a movie scene where they have, I couldn't tell you what the name of the movie is, but they have a lot of exposition they need to share. And so they have the Pope swimming laps while the people are talking about what's going on or all the information the audience needs to know. So it's basically Jane's building something quirky or doing something quirky to kind of keep us occupied while they're just dropping a lot of facts about the case.
Oh,
They use
interesting.
this technique from time to time. I don't think they overuse it, but it's
Oh,
also a way to show, like they like to show off a lot of Jane's little tricks and
yeah, yeah,
different skills he has, and he's a little always the showman. So it's just a way to
yeah.
kind of bring that together.
Huh, interesting. So, basically misdirection, so
A little bit, yeah. It's just while they're talking about, instead of just having talking heads and them just being kind of boring, it gives us
yeah,
another thing to pay attention to. And I do wonder, it is a trick that we could try at home.
yeah. I'm gonna have to go back and look at that because
Yeah,
yeah, he basically sticks the spoon into one of in between the tines and
yeah.
yeah. Although I don't know, it must take a while to burn a toothpick.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it seems very fiddly. We'll have to try it. If you try it, let us know.
Well, if you try it, let us know. I might burn my house down. I'm a klutz like that. Okay, rewatch checklist. There's a couple of Jisbin moments.
When Jane's holding the baby waiting for social services, Lisbon's right there with them. There's like leaning up against the car. They're kind of being a cozy little family unit there.
And then when they're interrogating Preciado, Lisbon says, "A good-looking man like you," and Jane like turns and looks at her like, "What? You think he's good looking?" I thought that was amusing. I didn't notice any locations that we've seen before, so there's nothing on that one. We added Blakely to our punch list, and then I have started tracking Jane's outfits because it drives me bananas that people say Jane only wears one suit. I'm like, no, he
Nope.
doesn't. He wears 3 suits in this episode alone. Okay, people. In the beginning, he's wearing a dark gray suit with a black vest and a light blue shirt. Then midway into the episode, he's wearing a light gray suit with a dark gray vest and a darker blue striped shirt. And then at the end, when he drops off the baby, he's wearing a navy blue jacket, a light gray vest, and a light blue and white striped shirt. He's wearing different suits.
Love it.
Oh. Favorite lines. I think my favorite line is Cho's "I'm gonna know it was there."
My favorite section was at the beginning when they're introduced to the local cops and Jane's prodding them and they leave and Lisbon says, "When are you going to learn to cool it without being told?" And Jane says, "Oh, come on, they pissed you off too, the sexist pigs." And Lisbon says, "They were." And Jane's like, "I just said they were."
I just said that.
And she says, "You were saying it ironically." And I have the Cho Zinger of the week
Okay.
when he says, in his deadpan, let's see if I can do it. She's confident about the time frame because they were having sex with the TV on, and it was the Scottish guy talking to that actress who married the country singer.
Okay. New Memory Palace quiz. The way this works is I'm going to ask Karin 5 questions of increasing difficulty about the episode we just discussed, and you'll have 5 seconds to come up with an answer. Ready?
Let's do it.
Question 1. What is the name of the man they allege Karis sent to kill Purcell?
Q-tip.
Q-tip. Yeah, we mentioned him several times. I wonder. It's a pretty clearly fake name, but I thought it was amusing. Okay, question 2. Cho hates pineapple, but what does Grace hate?
Cilantro.
Woohoo! For the record, I love cilantro. I would like drown my pizza in cilantro if I
Oh,
had the choice.
oh. Cilantro tastes like soap to me.
Oh my god.
Ugh.
All right. Question 3. I admit that a lot of these are easy, but I'm trying to make them ascending in difficulty. What caliber bullet were the victims killed with?
38.
Yeah. Okay, question 4. When Lisbon it's getting hard now, see, because
Okay.
questions 1, 2, and 3 were easy, but 4 and 5
Okay.
are going to be hard. When Lisbon tells Jane she's going to the zoo, she's joking. What does she say she's going to see?
New tiger cubs.
Oh, you got it. Okay, maybe it
Woo!
wasn't hard. Okay, last one. Question 5. What is the name of the bridal magazine that Jane took from Patrice's car?
No. Oh, I don't know. Beautiful Brides.
No, it was Tomorrow's Bride, which is funny
Tomorrow's.
because that magazine looked like it was from the 70s.
Yeah.
It looked pretty old. All right, that was it for our quiz. What did you get? You got 4 out of 5. Pretty
Yeah.
good.
Hey.
If you're enjoying Rom-Com Detectives, be sure to leave us a rating or review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. For our Spotify listeners, you can leave us a comment for our question of the week and tell us whether you like pineapple on your pizza. If you'd like to join additional conversations about The Mentalist, you can visit the Mentalist subreddit at reddit.com/r/The Mentalist, and you can join the Mentalist Bullpen Discord server linked in the sidebar. To contact me and Karin, email us at host@romcomdetectives.com, follow us on Instagram, Threads, or Blue Sky at romcomdetectives, or leave us a voicemail or text message at 1-650-733-XOXO or 9696. This episode of Rom-Com Detectives was recorded on May 27, 2025. Rom-Com Detectives Mentalist Unit is co-hosted by Crystal Watanabe and Karin Lubbers and is produced by Pico's House. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.